welcome back to the How I Got Greenlit podcast. I am your co-host, Sam Levine, and as always, I am joined by the creator of Project Greenlight, Alex Keledjian. Alex, how are you today?
Good. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm a little bruised like the main character of the movie we just saw, which is Caught Stealing, but that's because my 3-year-old daughter was kicking me in the face all night as she slept next to me. But anyways, yeah, Caught Stealing, man. What a movie. We're clearly getting some sort of trend here. We keep selecting these movies that are very much out of time, right? I mean, these feel like very nostalgic movies for different eras, and it's keeping in theme with what we've been talking about for the last 3 episodes.
Yeah, I mean, we're all, even Make America Great Again is a nostalgic statement, right? Like somebody said online, The Matrix is set in 1999 and when it came out, but now it seems more prescient. Like, oh, that was the last time before the machines drove us crazy in our politics and our everyday life, which is ironic. But this movie is really a love letter to downtown New York of a certain time when, a bartender could afford an apartment in, Lower East Side, downtown Avenue A, whatever, kind of that area that the whole movie's set in. It's very much an homage to After Hours, even, which is why they have Griffin Dunn playing his boss, sort of the previous generation. And even when you see the boss, he's a throwback. The bar that he owns is a throwback. And the character himself is always talking about the good old days with various barflies. Oh, you remember that time when we went to the thing? So it all has this patina of like a middle-aged man remembering his youth is how I was struck by it.
Yeah. It's funny. I was watching the trailer for this movie and I was thinking to myself that this was going to be a fun time. Just walking to this movie, I'm thinking, okay, this is going to be Darren Aronofsky's sort of feel-good movie. We'll just put it that way, right? Like this would be his really lighthearted venture. And I don't want to spoil too much, but you find out it's not that lighthearted. This movie
they marketed it as a romp, and
they did. This movie gets heavy on you fast.
It's romp-ish.
Yeah, right.
It's fun. It's
romp
a ride.
Yeah,
but it's one of those rides where halfway through you see one of the bolts missing on like the major support girder, and you're like, right. Oh, this isn't just this isn't just terrifying for fun's sake. This is going to be authentically terrifying. Yeah, I think that the whimsy is there. I mean, the Matt Smith character is certainly like from almost like a Guy Ritchie kind of character in the movie. And even the two Hasidim made me feel like Snatch-ish, if you remember that movie.
Absolutely.
A lot of winks and nods to that era. Yeah. The soundtrack's great, but it was all like, oh yeah, that song, and oh yeah, Smashing Pumpkins. Like I'm sure it'll do well as like a retro like soundtrack on Spotify or whatever, but it's all throwing back, right?
Yeah.
A cell phone is like superfluous in this. A lot of screenwriters, a lot of storytellers, even like I was listening to Ben Stiller saying like most of our favorite movies and TV show plots would be completely blown in two if cell phones existed, right? Think of any thriller like, well, you got to get out of there, blowout. Like there's always people running to tell them like the killer's coming home, and it's just if you had a cell phone, it'd be nothing. So there's a lot of nostalgia in our world right now, on both sides of the fence. Make America Great, nostalgia, this movie, all the movies that we've talked about, certainly deciding to go back to, what would that be? Golden Age Superman. Like,
right. Yeah.
He saves a dog. Like that's not the post Matrix dog like this superhero that we've had the last 20 years. Like that's way back. That's going pre George Reeves, like radio drama kind of Superman. Yeah. So this one, if anybody lived in New York in that era, like I did, I went to NYU, right around that time actually. And, it's very much a love letter to the downtown that no longer exists. Like I'm half surprised they didn't walk by the CBGB, logo or whatever, but there was probably some lawsuit regarding it. Now it's a fucking Gap or something, you know? So like that whole danger art, you know, kind of post AIDS 90s, New York as a vital artistic community. That was the end of it. And now it's just a trust fund playground.
You know, it's funny you mentioned Blowout, because the entire time I was watching the movie, I was actually thinking that this was Darren Aronofsky's version of The Untouchables, in that this was his crowd pleaser, right? I don't think this guy's ever made a crowd pleaser before.
No.
But this was his version of that. And Brian De Palma obviously directed Blowout. But I kept thinking that, like, this is, and I actually like that. I am personally like, sometimes I like, for filmmakers, especially of Darren Aronofsky's type, I'm like, every once in a while, like, or every once in your lifetime, throw us a bone. Like, give us something a little bit digestible.
Yeah, I mean, this is if I was doing a film festival, I would put Pi and this together to show there's his first movie, which is also a weird love letter to living downtown in a studio apartment, in the sense that he shot it in his downtown studio apartment and had no money otherwise. Right. But it captured that same era, the late, you know, mid to late 90s downtown New York. And this one is the same, but it's almost like a fairy tale. And you're right, tonally. I mean, look, again, spoiler alert. Killing Zoe Kravitz was the big, like, this isn't going to be a wacky, like, everything will return to normal movie at the end. Like, there's a death of a character, probably the most, you know, likable character in the movie. And it kind of hammers home, like, this guy's got to deal with some shit. And we find out he has a dark past. And, you know, I don't think Darren Aronofsky can make a truly escapist movie. Although I did really want to see his, you know, this was before they went with the Christian Bale, Nolan Batman, but he was up to do Batman Year One, which is one of my favorite comic runs. It's basically what if the first iteration of Batman was more like Taxi Driver, you know, like the guy was young and he's sort of disaffected and he's wandering around New York or Gotham. And he's like, oh, you know, someday a rain's going to come. But instead of becoming Taxi Driver, he becomes Batman. You know, he starts out with like hockey pads, and it's a very grounded Batman. And he was really pushing for it and pitching it, and, you know, they were talking about it publicly, and it never happened, but it would have been an interesting, like, what if of that whole thing. But I agree, the guy can't not have some kind of subtext.
Right. Yeah. And he does a lot of really clever things in this movie. I think, you know, he sets it up like it's going to be a romp, and then we are in spoiler territory now, everybody, but when he kills Zoe Kravitz, I mean, that's on purpose in the sense that it's such a tonal shift, but it's effective. And he does a few really smart things in this movie, in my opinion. The first being, and more spoiler alerts, everyone, Regina King. You know, we're living in the year 2025. I feel like we're more inclusive than ever. We're thinking, you know, the left is, you know, I think trying to be more tolerant and progressive than ever. So he introduces this strong black female detective, and she's sympathetic. She immediately gets your empathy or your sympathy in the movie. You think that she's one of the good guys, almost by the nature of her casting. Surely she must be one of the good guys. So when they switch it up on you and you find out she's the big bad, essentially, it's such a clever twist, because when they introduce her, I mean, I'll speak for myself. I did not see that coming at all, because when was the last time you saw a black female lead, middle-aged woman as the villain in a movie like this?
It's, I think what he's trying to say is, okay, you know, here is equality. We are going to make you as flawed as the rest, you know. And I believe Aronofsky's Jewish, so, you know, some of the, let's say, a slightly over the top Hasidic, you know, references and whatever are also, like, lovingly done, because he probably does have some experience with that in New York. Again, a very New York movie in the sense that there's sort of a pretty good racial mix of people. There's, like, you know, expats from England. There's black. There's Hasidim. There's I think Puerto Rican was Bad Bunny was playing.
And Bad Bunny was really good.
He was good.
Both of the non-actors in this movie were good. Bad Bunny and Action Bronson, if you noticed him, he was the other barfly who gets killed. He's the bigger guy. Yeah.
Oh, you know who I thought that was? Are you a fan of The Town, the Ben Affleck movie?
Yeah, I've seen it once, but I liked it.
Oh, I fucking love that movie. It's one of the best heist movies, and I thought he was the wheelman from that movie.
I mean, maybe Action Bronson was, but that was definitely Action Bronson, who is a white Albanian rapper who sounds exactly like Ghostface Killer, if you're into the Wu-Tang Clan. Yeah.
Nice.
He's a pretty well-known rapper, but a good performance from a non-actor, just like Bad Bunny.
Yeah, so to me, that was the most fun, was like sort of the characters of it all.
Totally agree.
Again, felt like a Guy Ritchie. It was like an American downtown Guy Ritchie movie in a way.
Yeah, it sure was.
I think he was going for that. Somebody, I think it was Vince Mancini. If you're a fan of the film Drunk, he's a good reviewer. He said this was like Aronofsky's catching up on the late 90s movie he never did, right? like we got Go, we obviously got the Guy Ritchie movies, we got all those romps of that era. I feel like that was the defining, like, somewhere between Tarantino and the sort of crime world and the big characters and fun kind of wackadoo of that. So it's like he's going back and like, well, what didn't I do when I became the intense guy? I never got to do my funny movie. Apparently it was based on a book. I have not read the book. But I think it's as good as any in that genre of the like one night character who is drawn into something he had nothing to do with, almost like a Hitchcock movie, right? Like, and I'll be honest, I liked Austin Butler. I
completely agree.
I feel like he was playing the Johnny Depp playbook, which was like do alien stuff, do weird stuff, do otherworldly characters, right? Yeah. Like, and I know he was just my daughter was like, "What, are you kidding me? He was in like the Carrie Diaries. This ain't no like Johnny Depp. This guy's been banging around for years." But you know what I mean? In his cinematic choices,
I wanted to talk about Austin Butler. So here's a guy. He gets his big break in Elvis. And everything about Austin Butler, for me, is a guy I would normally not like. He's handsome. He takes the craft maybe too seriously. And
he keeps the accent for a year after the role.
From Elvis, yeah. And by the way, I really like Elvis. I'm one of the few people who actually really likes that movie. But
tried it twice.
You can't do it?
Can't finish it, yeah.
I don't know why. I've always been a Baz Luhrmann guy. My mom and I used to watch Strictly Ballroom when I was a kid, so I'm really I'm used to his style of movie making. But back to Austin Butler, every single thing I see him in, I like him. I always like him. And it's a real testament to his acting ability because he is so sort of the it guy being force-fed down our throats. Yes. But I'm fine with it. I'm glad they chose him. If they were going to choose an it guy, I'm glad it's him.
You're not on Team Elordi?
No, not yet. See, I'm not on Team Elordi. Exactly right. That's a guy.
That's the other guy they're shoving down.
And I don't think he's got the talent that Butler has. I really don't. And this whole movie, I think, really rests on all the performances. And he gets a lot of fantastic performances. And everybody is honestly just knocking it right out of the park. I mean, all the performances are fantastic. And special mention to Matt Smith, who started his career basically as Doctor Who and has then transitioned into purely unlikable, edgy characters. He's got this...
But a lot of genre. Like he has a face, House of Dragons, and he just has that dramatic English face. Like he's just pre-made for like a Star Destroyer commander. In fact,
he does petulant really well.
I believe he's the bad guy for Ryan Gosling's Starfighter.
I didn't
So
even
I
know
mean,
that's coming out. Starfighter's
oh,
coming
they're
out?
shooting it. They're shooting it. So I imagine he's going to be the Red Baron of the TIE Fighter set with his little mustache and a silk scarf.
Yeah.
I'll get you, Starfighter.
By the way,
And
speaking of crime movies, have we ever watched one single character die so slowly since Reservoir Dogs? I mean, you're basically watching his character, Matt Smith's character, die for like 35 minutes approximately,
yeah, they're dragging him along.
and from a concussion. When was the last time you've seen that?
Everyone's like gone from that. Yeah. No, I mean, there's a lot of fun in this movie that just like the old shitty cars and like the subway, the body on the subway. Yeah. That's always a New York perennial. They thought he was asleep, but he was dead.
Yeah.
I just, I liked the movie. You had said like, I haven't seen a movie like this on a big screen. Yeah. I mean, it's a $40 million indie.
Yeah.
This would have been like, if not for Pi, this would have been, interesting newcomer with the energetic style, blah, 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 On the other hand, it's nothing revolutionary.
No, not at all.
It's like, we're grateful that it's there, but in the 40 years from now, retrospective, I don't know how much like bandwidth it's going to get on the Aronofsky, like, yeah,
There is something revolutionary about it, and I'll tell you what it is. Right before we started recording this podcast, I was watching the FX series Alien Earth, right? The Noah Hawley series. And as I'm watching it, I kept thinking about how every pitch for every project in Hollywood now seems to be, what if blah, blah, blah? And then what if blah, blah, blah? We're in this whole like what if era. It just take Earth and then what if this, what if that? And it's so nice to see a movie where it's just like, nah, this is just a story that takes place in reality, in a time with no what ifs, no, it's not like, you know what I mean? Like the only what if is what if it's New York in 1998. And I think we're missing that. You mentioned it as a $40 million drama. I would call that like a kitchen sink drama. Indie. Excuse me, $40 million indie. I would call that a kitchen sink drama. And like we're missing those type of mid-budget stories that they're not these giant genre pieces. For me, that's the revolutionary part. I love that. I get so tired when I see these projects that are just, they're so genre bent. They're just trying to do Westworld and Game of Thrones over and over and over.
Well, I mean, look, in anybody's defense, and again, we could do a subsect, for Patreon listeners only, Alien Earth episode if you want to delve into TV. But every single pitch starts off with what if. Like, there's no not what if.
Okay.
So, I got to give them credit for that. But yeah, sometimes you can retrofit like the pitch for the movie. I think last week I said Weapons felt like the director was doing like sort of a mental exercise. Like, how many 8-year-olds does it take to rip a human body clean of flesh? And that's and then he backed into a story to justify such an action. In this case, it's low stakes. What I think you're saying is we miss movies where the world and everything we know in it is at stake. All that's at stake here is this dude has been hiding from his life.
Right.
He moved to a city where he didn't have to drive. He is a professional drinker, as most bartenders that I ever knew were. And he's got this cute girlfriend that's kind of trying to redeem him, and he kind of doesn't want to be redeemed. So it has, structurally what we want, which is like, kind of likable loser, hiding from any progress in his life. He's kind of stuck. He's okay with it. He's popular in his tiny little pond that he's created around himself. And that's probably how he's going to ride it out. He'll turn into Paul I think he met Paul. Paul was nice to him. And he's like, I could be Paul. That's a life I could handle. and the girlfriend, the Zoe Kravitz character, is kind of like, no, I think you have a lot more to you, and it's not necessarily baseball. You know, what I liked about it was you had a pretty clean character arc of like a guy who was really talented in a certain very specialized field. It was taken away from him, and he's still kind of like, well, what now? Like, I
Yeah.
was trained from youth to do this, and I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing now. And so for that, it was fine. And you know, the money there's a MacGuffin, but
Yes.
it's sort of superfluous. And you know, I find, you know, it's interesting now to like to talk about the times. You know, a lot of treasure movies, a lot of like heist movies, a lot of money movies, they end with the kind of like almost going back to the old Hayes office, which crime does not pay, because you know you have all this Sturm und Drang of everybody fighting for the diamonds, the gold, the money, the you know, the priceless art, and then by the end it burns, or they lose it, or a seagull carries it away, or it's swallowed by a whale, and oh shit, I guess we're back to square one. I like that they introduce a MacGuffin. It's like 4 million in like, you know, drug money, and he gets it. Like our guy gets it, you know. But on the other hand, he does pay, you know,
Oh
a heavy
yeah.
cost.
He
And
pays a steep price.
I think Zoe was the cost that Aronofsky felt like, okay, you know, we'll give him the money at the end, but he's going to really get kicked. He can't have the girl in the money. He has to have sort of the hard won lesson.
Yeah, and you know it's funny. The whole movie, he has this sort of ongoing bit where he's got to call his mom every day. And no matter what's going on, I mean, he could be chased by Hasidim gangsters. He's still got to make a call to his mom. And you never hear the mom's voice on the other end of the line. You just know she's a huge San Francisco Giants fan. And when they reveal the actress at the end of the movie, who's his mom, I actually thought it was perfect. I was like, yep, that would be Austin Butler's mom. And she gets
Yeah.
maybe 2 seconds of screen time, and somehow,
I think she has one line. She just says
yeah,
"fuck."
yeah, and
Yeah,
somehow manages
it's
to
well,
make
can
it
we
work.
say it's
Yeah,
Laura Dern? You
and
know,
the way
so
she even says "fuck" in the movie, it just, I was like, oh yeah, that's that character's mom. She seems kind of like a basket case a little bit, right? Kind of like almost immature herself. It's the weirdest thing, but it just works really well.
yeah. That look, there's a lot to like about this movie. I like that he went to Tulum. It was very like Shawshank Redemption. You know,
Yeah,
there's a
sure.
lot. It's escapist. You know,
Yeah.
I think that's great that he tried to just make a clean genre movie. Like,
Yeah.
I'm going to make a Mistaken Man, you know, crime movie,
Mhm.
and this is my version of that. And I thought he did pretty well.
Yeah, you know, have you ever seen Adaptation?
Of course.
So when I'm talking about these sort of genre piece movies, there's a moment in Adaptation where the Nicolas Cage character, one of the two, who's I guess the Charlie Kaufman surrogate, is talking to a screenwriter played by Brian Cox in like this like screenwriting seminar, and
Oh, but get it right. He's playing McKee, the Robert McKee, the author of Story, the Bible of screenwriting. Like,
right,
you gotta
right.
get it right.
Yeah. So Nicolas Cage, he's asking, can I make a movie? Can I write a movie in which everything's normal, nothing happens, nothing extraordinary happens, there's no great setup, there's no mortal danger. I just want to show a movie about a guy living his life. And the Brian Cox character just rips into him like, that's ridiculous. People don't want that. They want the stakes to be raised. Life is already mundane. But as I get older, that is actually the kind of movie I want. The more things are sort of plot oriented, the more I find them easily picked apart, where I can know what's going to happen, as where the more mundane they are, the more unpredictable they are. And that's all to say for this movie, even though it's very much a plot-driven film, I thought he did an excellent job where I genuinely wasn't sure what the next thing was going to be that was going to happen. I thought in lesser hands, this actually could have been a very bad movie. This could have been a film that just came and went and had nothing to it. But I thought it was just so skillfully made. It's almost like Naked Gun, where these could be very different pieces of cinema in lesser hands, but they're just so well crafted.
Yeah, there was a um, screwball version of this movie where
Yes.
like the cat would cover his face with his paws
Yeah.
when someone gets kicked in the balls, you know.
Yeah.
And that's easy. Like you
Right.
can see totally like all he has to do is linger on a few shots and add a fart noise and like you're off into a different movie. Um Look, I think Aronofsky is a smart guy. I think he is funny. I think he's less inclined to make a comedy. I think we've come to know him as like the intensity guy from Pi, certainly Requiem for a Dream. Um, but you know, he's done other stuff. I like these filmmakers that once they get any juice, they're like, I want to do another thing in a different genre. I'm going to make a freaking Moses Flood movie. I'm going to make a bizarre analogy about Mother Nature getting raped in a house. I mean, it's all over the place with him. And that speaks more of an artist to me that's following passion, not you know, look, I mean, there's nothing wrong with the sort of workaday attitude of certain filmmakers, you know, even like Lumet, you know, had no pretension. He was just
Yeah.
like, I work, I shoot a movie. I'm in at 9, I'm out at 5, you know.
And Lumet, by the way, is my favorite of all time. He's my favorite director of all time because of
okay.
that very thing you said. I admire the humility in his craft. It's
There's
just
no pretension.
none whatsoever.
In the guy in the, well, you should read his, I think it's
Making
called
movies.
Making Movies.
Oh, I've
Yeah.
consumed every single thing that Lumet does because I appreciate that sort of blue collar workmanship. He keeps chugging along. He's got like 45 movies. About half of them are good. About 15 of them are amazing.
I'm glad that
incredible.
you're admitting that, because when people say I love Lumet, I'm kind of like, and his track record, and I'm glad you're saying like, look, he makes classics and then sometimes he doesn't.
Yeah.
And that's a measure of like the more prolific filmmakers, I think. Like Ridley Scott's a good example. He loves to make movies.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're classics and sometimes they're not. I think he always tries to make a classic and it doesn't happen. You know, I was very excited about Napoleon and it didn't quite occur.
Oh my God,
You
dude, we could talk about Napoleon.
Yeah, you know, but like there's again, first, last, you know, like I would do The Duelist. I would show like
I like Duelist.
I love Duelist.
Yeah.
I'm like, I wish that guy that got the first green light at 30 or whatever he was to make that movie was the guy that made Napoleon. It's there's a different attitude going on there. But you know, again, a bookending. I think that he's never, you know, Aronofsky's never made a boring movie.
No. Well, wait a minute. What about The Fountain?
I like The Fountain.
Oh, interesting. Can you tell me why you like The Fountain? Can we let's veer a little bit. Now I got to hear why you like The Fountain.
Because well, first of all, I like practical effects.
Okay.
So if you watch The Fountain, you can see that Christopher Nolan watched The Fountain and said, you know, for Interstellar, I should go back to that weird dude that Kubrick hired to like break egg yolks in oil suspended over a macro lens camera to make some trippy shit. I mean, it all kind of looks like those backplates for like Jefferson Airplane, circa 1967 in the Fillmore.
Yeah.
But so what? I love that shit. And it gives it a that almost feels like a painting come to life, The Fountain.
Yeah.
I think that it's not perfect, but again, pushing the envelope. He didn't make that movie. He didn't cut that movie with like a jaundiced eye to box office. He's like, this is a painting. This will not hang in the Met. It might hang in some downtown gallery or something, or end up over the washroom of a Bennigan's. But it's a piece of art, and I'm going to stay within the bounds of its own reality, right? So, again, you know what the funny thing is? Not a very rewatchable director.
No, not at all. Although I might rewatch this. I think if I was ever
Yeah.
going to rewatch an Aronofsky movie, it definitely wouldn't be The Whale.
I think this is it,
Yeah.
and that's what I mean is like one could argue that he's so powerful that like statement received,
Yeah.
copy that. No transmission loss there. Requiem for a Dream. Don't do drugs, kids.
Yeah.
Copy received, Pi, whatever. Actually, Pi I've watched a few times because first films are interesting to look at and dissect, and I know exactly how he made that movie, and I made movies like that. He used, reversal film and like, ends, just like leftover ends of rolls, and that one's more like, wow, what a effort for no money and no like resources. But Requiem from a Dream it is a great movie for a dream. And you might want to steal shots here and there, but just it's like a fucking like
No, it's a bad
pulling
hang.
teeth,
Yeah, it's a
bad hang.
bad
The Whale, they're bad hangs, but they're like intense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is his first good hang movie. This is a great way of putting
Well,
it.
maybe Black Swan, but even
Black
that
Swan's
is
a
fucking
bad
troubling.
hang, dude. I don't know, man.
No, but I mean, it's just so good. And
yes, it's good.
Again, a genre, he's like, okay, can I make a De Palma movie? Like that kind of thing, like a sexy thriller, psychological thing. So I think he's one of our greats.
Yeah.
Look, maybe AI, maybe streaming will kill the business so much that they'll start giving real filmmakers like the reins. I just read today, you'll love this. There's this dichotomy, right? Like, would Aronofsky direct the living shit out of an X-Men movie? Yeah, he would.
Hell yeah.
He would make them troubled and sad and angry, and it would be fucking awesome because you'd finally see the troubled kid element of X-Men.
Yeah.
But
it's like him or Larry Clark.
Oh, that's a goodie.
I think Aronofsky would be better.
New mutants get mutant AIDS.
Yeah. Right.
So, the reason I bring it up is they almost never give real filmmakers like the brands, right?
Yeah.
Like
sure.
there's a recent announcement which I'm fascinated to hear about. Denis Villeneuve to do Bond. And that was on the heels of like Nolan was really shooting for Bond. And like 40 years ago, Spielberg wanted to do Bond, and they all came away with the same like, oh, but the fucking Broccolis, I don't want to deal with their shit.
Yeah.
And none of them wanted to give up Final Cut. So here we are. I think just today in the trades it said Spielberg loves Call of Duty. Like he's a gamer.
No way.
And he wants to do Call of Duty, which is
he did make
my
Call of
favorite.
Duty. He made Call of Duty. It's called Saving Private Ryan. In fact, I think that Saving Private Ryan predates Call of Duty. I think
exactly.
Yeah, I think
he influenced their World War II games. Yeah. So, but no, he likes the new. I don't know if you're a gamer or whatever.
Yeah, I am a gamer. Absolutely.
They actually have like characters that recur that I like and stuff, and so it's a pretty fun. Who am I to tell them their $1 trillion fucking gaming brand is good? But no, he went to them and said, I want to do a Call of Duty movie. I'm Steven Spielberg. Thank you for listening.
Yeah. Right.
And they were like, nah.
Who is they?
Activision.
Whoa.
And they said, we'll give it to Paramount because they're paying us more, and also we get Final Cut.
That's crazy.
So it's fascinating. Even Spielberg, they're like, we'd like to fiddle with your edit if we may,
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, maybe more than anything, that tells you why there's always been this divide in like good video game adaptations. It's because don't give a programmer Final Cut. Movies have to be an emotional hit set in a plot heavy world. Video games are by definition first person, even if it looks third person, meaning you are the hero.
You are role playing.
So, right. So how do you make it a second person experience, i.e., passively watching a hero, do a thing. So, and that's a whole nother subject that we can talk about.
I actually once read that the video game industry is bigger actually than the movie industry and the music industry combined. combined, which
Yeah,
might,
I think, and sports.
yeah,
Yeah,
which might be why they'll say no to
insane.
Steven Spielberg. They're like, no, you're a big fish in a smaller pond to us, which is crazy to think about.
Sure. But let me think if I can think of an analogy. I mean, just because you're like a world-class chef in France and you have 2 Michelin stars, like
Hmm.
if you're gonna make fast food, like partner up with Chick-fil-A, like just so
Yeah.
you know the kind of the world and what the rules of engagement are. To me, it's a larger issue, especially about tech, which is and going back to Alien Earth, I'll tie a bow on it. Just because you're good at a thing doesn't mean you're good at all things. And
Mm.
that's sort of the theme of Alien Earth is you have these trillionaires vying for control. And, okay, so they're good enough to write a piece of code that ends up making a piece of tech that makes them $1 trillion. Good on you.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you know everything about everything about everything. And, that's the human element of all this stuff, the hubris that continually it drives the human condition. If you want, you have a government now that's essentially, locking down sort of authoritarian control, but they're so fucking incompetent that like they keep, bursting at the seams, and that's the story. I mean, I love watching history because it's like if Hitler had just stopped at Czechoslovakia, he would be considered a genius. And it's like, right.
Yeah.
But
Right.
he didn't.
Right. Because he's
And
Hitler.
you can say that about fucking everybody,
Yeah.
right? No, but not just buddies Hitler. Look,
No, I
hate
mean,
to
because
break
he's
it to
Hitler,
you.
he's not going to stop because that's who he is.
Every historical story starts with, and only if Yamamoto hadn't bombed Pearl Harbor, he would be considered a genius. It's always the like, yeah, and then they did the thing that we know that was the great fucking banana peel of their life. But do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So in similar but I'm saying especially tech people, i.e. Doge, i.e. whatever, like, well, I know this thing, so I know everything.
Right. So I have a question for you. You were talking about giving the reins to real filmmakers over certain projects.
To the big franchises.
To the big franchises, correct. But my question is this, you're in the industry. I'm not in the industry. And I watched this movie. It's major distributors, Columbia Pictures. The question, I guess, is why do you suspect this movie's made? How does he convince them that this movie's going to make money? I have to assume they're not going to finance this film without assuming it's going to make them a profit. But I'm watching this movie, and, it takes place in 1998. It's about New York in 1998. How many people can really relate to that? It doesn't fit in the sort of broader landscape of movies at the moment. And you navigate this industry. You take meetings. You're in these environments. How do you think he convinces them to make something like this?
I think most of the studio heads, contrary to popular opinion, are film fans, and especially filmmaker fans.
Yeah.
So they can acknowledge that they want to make a P.T. Anderson movie. They want to make a Tarantino movie. They want to make an Aronofsky movie. They have other masters. They have money. That. So
who are their masters then? If the studio heads are the ones who want to make real films, then who are the masters?
Well, hold on. Let me finish.
Okay.
That's what they as an individual want to make, right?
Yeah.
And like if you watch the studio, which is it's okay, it's fun.
Yeah.
It's not a documentary, but.
Right.
You have the schism internally of I love movies. I've dedicated myself to movies. I've worked my way up to be head of production or head of a studio. On the other hand, I want to keep my job, and I got to keep the money coming in. So you want to look back on your career and say, I made a movie with Aronofsky. I made a movie with Ridley Scott. But you also want to be the one that made Gladiator and not the one that made the one that didn't make any money. So when Aronofsky comes in your door, you take the meeting because you're like, dude, I'm a big fan. I fucking love Pi. I love Requiem. Blah, blah, blah. What do you got for me? Now, if they're pitching you some really obscure, like, oh, it's about my mom and this and that, and you're like, yeah, we'll take it under advisement. But when he comes in and he goes, I want to make a fun genre fuck around movie, and what a good director is, number one and foremost in the business, is cheese for the mouse. And the mouse is the movie star. So if you want to talk about playbook on how to be a lasting DiCaprio, Johnny Depp level movie star, you take whatever credibility you have, a la Austin Butler, A-lister after Elvis, goes into Dune. Why does he do Dune? He doesn't do Dune for the payday. I don't even think he probably got that much money. He's not the star of that movie. He wants to work with Denis.
Yes.
And he wants to work in a movie that Denis makes that's fucking good.
Yeah.
Because that keeps his shine, it adds a little credibility, and it allows him to build that altitude that he needs to maintain for the rest of his career. So DiCaprio really set the modern tone, which is get to Scorsese and lock in with Scorsese.
Yeah.
Get to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The big directors that are genuine filmmakers that maybe even you think you can learn something from. How does he direct different than Villeneuve? How does he direct different than Baz Luhrmann? And then you do their bidding, you know, do what they say, listen and learn. And Aronofsky gets the added bonus of, I have the new A-list guy that's on my jock. Do you guys want to play with us?
Yeah.
You know, it's that, you know, actors want to work with good directors. You know, as a producer, you want the good director because that's the cheese that gets you the A-lister, that gets you the money. The studios, if you had Austin Butler and Zoe Kravitz, you and I could have made this movie, right?
I hope so.
Well, I'm saying in terms of putting the pitch together.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Would they have given us 40 million? No, but they give us 10.
Yeah. And
we could make a pretty good similar size shape movie. I mean, first thing you change is, well, it's 2025, but it looks like the 90s, right?
Right.
So like, do you see what I mean?
Yeah,
it's about the deal structure, and it always comes down to movie stars, because who is the star of this movie? You know, I would argue it's Aronofsky, but that's because my perspective tells me that I want to go see the Aronofsky movie. But the posters and the trailers, it's Austin Butler with his shirt off all day, and that's fine. That's good. So when you're saying, oh, why would a retro movie get made? I'll tell you exactly why a retro movie gets made. Because a 22-year-old right now, a 17 to 35-year-old person, they wanted to grow up in the 90s.
Oh. Are your kids into the 90s?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Their fashion's in the 90s. Their music is in the 90s. They have nostalgia for the 90s the way that the 80s had nostalgia for the 50s.
Okay.
Because it's a long gone era. It's before the war on terror. It's before cell phones. It's before Facebook. It's before Trump. It's before the recession of 08, before all the fucking shit that they perceive as rolling down, you know, the 21st century hill. It was the last great moment when like America was America, and real estate prices were not out of the, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
Pick a metric and they'd go, oh, the 90s. And I think left and right look back too fondly. Like, and this is, you know, I'll get on my fucking high horse. Like, since The Matrix, every fucking future vision is dystopian.
Absolutely true.
And I fucking had it. And I love The Matrix. And I think The Matrix is really important film. Really smartly done. Execution and idea all come together. Performance, directing. No question. However, it's so good that I think it sort of whacked people on the head like, oh, this is how it's going to be. And I'm like, yeah, fuck that. Where's my flying cars? You know, where's Star Trek? Where's the utopia that we were promised, you know? And everything has been rain-soaked and fucking, you know, noirish since then. And like, well, we're all fucked, and the robots are going to take over, and the weather broke in 2017, and I fucking had it. So like, this was about young people in a time that our current young people wish they grew up in. You know, you could smoke, like Zoe Kravitz is smoking. You know, it's like, it's a wink and a nod to everything we used to be able to do.
Yeah, like cocaine off a bar, like
Cocaine off a bar in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, all that shit. It's just that was. I mean, for the insiders, like that was the Dinkins New York before the Giuliani New York.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. To go a little off topic, we're talking about, getting movies like this made, movie stars help. Did you ever see an old animated series starring John Lovitz called The Critic?
Of course.
So I was a big fan
I
of that
loved
show.
it.
Yeah, exactly. Or
Yeah.
It Stinks. So I was a big fan of that show. And in The Critic, his career's taken a downturn in one episode. So he decides that the way to revive his career is to win another Pulitzer Prize. And the way he does it is he writes this long treatise about how to get them to stop the studios to stop making bad movies. And the way he does it is the way to get them to stop making bad movies is for us to stop seeing them. He's like, if it's a bad movie, don't go, and they'll stop making them. And I guess the point of it is, we all bear some responsibility to go see the good movies and to stop seeing the bad movies. And as a result, we will get the better movies. And if I have a call to action to anyone listening or watching this show, it's see a movie like this. Because if this type of movie makes money, right, won't it be easier for more movies like this to get made?
Yeah, look, talking about movies is something I do for free. So now that we get paid so much money to do this, it's kind of the irresistible combination of chocolate and peanut butter. But I think that I've never been a guy that's like, you got to do something, I don't like those like, well, if you're not seeing the movies and you're going to get that fucking derivative shit, it's like, no, just go see what you want. If you like, Mario Brothers 3, the Reckoning, whatever, go see that, as long as you're seeing something.
Yeah.
My bigger thing is just go to the theater.
Yeah.
I do love the theater, and I do love, there's an expectation. You're earning it. You're going there. There's snacks. There's like, it's more of a church thing. You're facing forward. Mm-hmm. There's sights and sounds and smells that trigger prior nostalgic response. And trailers are like little treats of what you might get next time if you're a good little moviegoer. But no, don't go see a movie because of what? You're supporting the fucking Sony bottom line. They're good for them. Fuck them. No, but go to movies.
Yeah.
Go to any movie. Go to the theater.
It's interesting you mentioned that. You're Gen X, I believe, right?
Yeah.
So I'm elder millennial, and the vast majority of the movies I've ever seen in my life have been on VHS tape. My entire experience with the movies has really been in my room alone, popping in a VHS tape and watching it. So while I like the movie theater, I've never had that kind of reverence for it the way you have.
Right.
What did you grow up with? I mean, were the majority of movies, let's say up until you were about 16 years old, were they in the theaters?
I think I did see a ton of tapes. I mean, let's be honest, but I was the first generation. What you were seeing were like the hand-me-downs that you bought at garage sales from my generation kind of thing.
Yeah.
And they were still around. I mean, somewhere there's a giant landfill just filled with like the plastic of the VHS phenomenon, right? And the first VCR that entered my life, I was all of like maybe 9 or 10, and my dad bought it for us for Christmas at a photo store. They sold like lenses and camera, Nikons and like that kind of stuff, and also got into the VCR business when it came out. And the place that had the laser disc player with the huge projection 3 color screen on the silver. And the first tape he bought was a bootleg of Star Wars.
Oh my God.
They were copying. They took their video cameras that they were selling with the little pouch for the deck, the little purse thing that you would wear. Mm-hmm. They were taking those big ass things and going into the back of the theater of Star Wars and framing the screen and this was that. So we got a tape, and it had those. Do you remember those old when you would label stuff? It had the tape that would like punch it in, so it felt like an old credit card. It had the like
exactly.
So that yes, so that original label maker, all it said was SW in that tape.
Yeah.
And he put it in, and it was the worst copy of Star Wars ever. And of course, I watched it 45 times. But I did see the movie 4 times in the theater, even as a kid, and then the retro, whatever. So like, you used to go to the theater multiple times. That was the biggest change. You used to go to the movies. Mm-hmm. It's Friday.
Yeah.
Well, what are you doing? Well, we're going to the movies.
Yeah.
What movie?
Right. See,
whatever.
For me, if I'm dying and I'm like hallucinating, whatever happens to people when they're dying, and I think of a movie, the image that's going to come into my head is a VHS tape. And in fact, I'll tell you this, when DVD players, when I knew they were starting to become the standard, and I had like 600 VHS tapes that I collected over my childhood, I went to Circuit City as Circuit City was closing. I mean, like,
right at the bargain bin, like buy it for $1 or something.
And I bought a VHS player that I have to this day in the box, because I was so worried that I would never get to play my VHS tapes again. So
that's really smart.
Yeah,
that's really smart.
Well, I didn't know.
Do you still have your tapes?
I still have everything, but at a certain point, I'm gonna have to give it up. I never saw the streaming revolution coming. Right, for me, that I didn't predict that. So the truth is, I don't need these tapes anymore. Almost everything I had on them, I can access online.
I'll be honest. There is a backlash. You know, there's a lot of people, and me as well. It has the patina of endless variety. There's literally like 30 movies.
Yeah, right.
You know?
Yeah.
You go on Amazon, you go on Tubi, you go on whatever, and they just like, oh, it's the same. And once you've seen a lot of movies like me, you're like, okay.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna do, like, Criterion has a streaming network, right?
They do.
Streaming platform.
Correct.
So like I literally am like, I am sick of the traditional shit. I've seen it all.
Yeah.
And what's weird is, you want to talk about the Matrix, none of those, when they say I always go to the classic section, right? Mm-hmm. Do you know what they consider a classic?
I don't want to know. I'm afraid.
Like Gremlins. And it's a good movie.
Yeah, I could see that.
That's like, I mean, that's a classic. Where's the, like, isn't Casablanca? I was looking more for like, a Sam Fuller movie or a fucking, John Frankenheimer or something. Like, they consider classic 89.
Well, dude, and that's the classic rock radio stations are playing Smashing Pumpkins. You know what I mean? Like,
and look, I could be the old man shaking his fucking cane at the kids on his lawn, but like, yeah, the reality is like, we are this weird pop culture thing where it's kind of like a 30-year churn and nothing means nothing. And it's like, I even read articles about how like fashion has eaten itself, and pop culture has eaten itself, and movies have eaten itself. So like, when you say to me like, oh, who's going to care about a movie set in 1998? I'm like, I think it's going to draw more young people for that than if it's set today. Yeah. They don't want to hear about they know their reality sucks. They want to see what it was like to live and work as a bartender and have Zoe Kravitz as your girlfriend and you just drink beer all day.
And the best part about Zoe Kravitz is that we're literally looking at Lisa Bonet's daughter. Like, the it girl of that time was this actress's mother, and she's a dead ringer for her. So it really is perfect.
It's yes, exactly. That you're totally right. In that reality, her mom would have been in like Angel Heart, 5 years before or whatever. Yeah. So like, do you know what I mean? Like, absolutely. Our present kind of sucks.
I mean, this has been the theme of the show so far. Like, this has been the recurring theme of why are these particular movies getting made? And I think that's a great place to end this conversation, which is that, again, they keep making these movies that reflect a different time period, and that seems to be what the people of today want.
Well, I also, I hope not to jinx it, but I'm getting a feeling. I mean, did you see this article that Disney finally decided, like, we're not making any more remakes, we want original IP? Oh,
interesting.
There's an old saying, like, the farmers would say, like, don't eat your seed corn, right? Which means when you farm, you store a certain amount for the winter, right?
Yeah.
And even you store even another amount, which is just for the seeds for the next crop. So we're really, in a cultural sense, we've been eating the seed corn for 10 years. So now finally, I hope, God willing, it might be better, more advantageous, and even more profitable for these conglomerates to realize film used to be primary.
Yeah.
Film used to lead culture. Film was the top of the pyramid where Star Wars would be made and you would derive from it, and not you derive from it to make a film, you know? So we could be seeing some really interesting things now, because if only because we've like bottomed out on every remake, reboot, whatever that's possible to get made.
And I think eating the seed corn will be the title of this episode.
Eating the seed corn.
Alex, thank you so much.
Eating the popcorn, the seed popcorn.
Yep, eating the seed corn. So this again is how I got greenlit. Guys, rate and review us. You know all that stuff. Alex, great conversation.
Good to
I'll look
talk.
forward to next week.
All right, bud. I'll see you.
Take it easy.